break anything, shouldn't it? I can't get it. Okay, everybody. Thank you for coming out in the weather. I'm actually happy I don't see more of you than I do, because our speaker left his home over 2.5 hours ago, and he lives in Provo, did not get past Traverse Mountain with the weather. So he told me he just turned around and is headed back, and it's taken him 15 minutes to go 1 mile. So that's that. So we thought maybe with the weather, we could just talk about some of the bills that we know about, and then we'll just let you go home early. And I'm sorry, I'm disappointed in myself. But let's just start with a prayer. And Jen, do you want to give a prayer?
Our Father in heaven, we are so very thankful for this time that we have to be together. We're thankful for our many blessings and for the safety that we enjoyed getting here. And please bless Aaron that he will make it home safely as well. Help us to have a spirit of resolution and help us as we awaken our neighbors, that we might not only awaken them to our awful situation, but awaken them to these things we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
So I'm kind of making this up as I go, just so you all know. And I'm going to have everybody scan their brains, so if they can, yeah, we'll let you do that. And I'm going to put a couple things on your calendar. I don't think there's really anything in February other than the legislative session that's currently going on, and we're going to talk about bills soon. And hi, sweetie. And then Lincoln Day dinner is March 15th. So for those of you who want to go to the Davis County Republican Party Lincoln Day dinner, that's that night. Do we know who's the speaker, Olivia?
I'm not allowed to say it.
Is it someone we're excited about?
If it's the person that they keep saying it should be, then yeah, I'd be excited. I'm excited.
Not Dick Cheney?
No.
Oh my goodness. I'd come with my signs if it was Dick Cheney. Oh my word, I'm still coming with signs. Okay, so again, that's the 15th. I think tickets are $75, but that's always a nice dinner and speaking, music usually.
You can go for 25 if you don't have dinner.
If you don't pay for dinner, you can go for 25. Okay.
You might want to remember the County Central Committee meeting Saturday.
Oh, okay. Who are precinct chairs or vice chairs? Okay, so you should know that this Saturday we have a County Central Committee meeting, and we'll be discussing a very important bylaw. Maybe I should mention it. All right, so convention is April 12th, and that will be at Bountiful High? Viewmont High. And we have at least someone really awesome that we know is running for chair of the party. I don't know, but his initials are DG.
And was recently pronounced dead by the state party chair.
That would be true. At the State Central Committee, this person was said to be dead.
He's talking about a different Dawn.
He meant Don Rosica. He corrected himself pretty fast. Okay, I'll just keep telling you a few more things. On March 1st is an event that will be good. It's down in Utah County. Let me just pull it up. This would be definitely worth coming. Okay, I'm thinking about so many things I can't think of. Tammy. Tammy Hirsch is holding an event, and it is called Family Liberty Revival. And she has a lot of speakers, including Al Jackson and his wife, Eric Moutsos, Natalie Klein, Alex Boyer, and some other people that will be of interest. But it's raising guardians of the republic. So they're just talking about all of those kind of topics. It'll be a patriotic event. It will be a nice event to educate you and help you know how you can be involved. So that, again, is in Utah County. If someone is interested in that, tell me, and I'll send you the information. Jen, do you know of anything else I could, what?
The filing period for any DCRP officers or SCC is February 17th through March 3rd.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
For State Central Committee?
Yes.
For all
Yes.
officers and state senators.
So if you want to run to be a member of the State Central Committee, you got to get your name to the county party by what date?
So it's a 2-week period, February 17th through March 3rd. We have a form that you fill out. If you can't find the form, we'll post it on Facebook. We're also going to email it out to everyone. But if you can't find it and you want to file, you can email me and then I'll send it to you.
So other positions that you can participate in are legislative district chair. It's all county leadership. So you can run for county positions, which they need good people who are willing to run caucus, who are willing to help with convention. Those are all really important. Being on the executive committee, those are all ways that you can serve in the community. Those are really important. Okay, whatever that means. March 5th. Okay. March 5th.
What time?
Farmington Library, 6. Tell him it said 6. All right. Oh, one other thing I can tell you about is, do any of you go to the Firm Foundation Conference? I don't know where that's going to be this year, but that's another good event to go to if you might be interested in that. Okay, so.
On the 27th, our next meeting?
Okay, thank you.
It'll be Phil Lyman, right?
Yes, so we'll let you know of that. So in 2 weeks from today, we will have Phil Lyman and we'll have Michael Clara. So that is in 2 weeks from today. Dave, you didn't hear, but our speaker for tonight, the weather made him not be able to get here. And it looks like I would expect a lot more people to be here. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who didn't show up tonight because of the weather. So the legislative session runs, we're halfway through the legislative session. It ends the 8th.
It's the first and last Friday in March.
Yeah, it's March 7th, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's, the 7th is a Friday. So some of the important, I can tell you, I'll tell you the things that I've been involved with this last week. And I'm not gonna be able to remember the names. Let me look up really quick. See if I can look at my bill tracker and be able to tell you the ones. I'm kind of watching if I can remember the numbers. Okay, so I'll talk about the fluoride amendments bill, which the fluoride bill will end fluoride. And it will make it so people who want fluoride, they can go get a tablet from their doctor. And today it was heard in the Senate committee, so we've already gone through the House committee, the floor, it passed out. Senate, it passed out today as well. That's huge, huge news. Yeah, out of committee, so now it goes to the floor. And then once it passes there, then to the governor's desk. And so I'll tell you about, I was there today and testified on that bill, so I'll tell you a little bit about that. It was similar to what the House was, which we had, you know, our medical doctors and our dentists and, you know, some of those health department types that were there professing, you know, the abundant good that fluoride does, with the other side saying the complete opposite. So the winning argument, I hope, which should have been the argument way back when, was it's not the proper role of government. It's not the proper role of government to be medicating our water. And that's really the way we should sell it. Not whether fluoride is good for us or fluoride is bad for us. That's emotional, and that's up for interpretation. So it's just not the proper role of government. And I think that point was made very well today. Let's see, the other interesting bill that,
Can I just make one comment on that?
yes, yes.
You probably really want to work on, I think, Todd Weiler. So if you happen to be blessed to live in his Senate district, you might want to reach out. Because keep in mind, in South Davis County, every legislator from South Davis County, Melissa Ballard, Ray Ward, Paul Cutler, all voted to keep fluoride in the water. And this was a vote that was like 52 to 19 to 1. You know, it was pretty overwhelming. The speech vote was,
Yeah,
you know, more than 2/3.
right.
But our legislators, so something to keep in mind is to remind our legislators about the proper role of government.
Right. And I actually talked with Melissa Ballard today, and she wanted to explain to me her no vote. And the reason why she voted no was because Davis County voted for fluoride 25 years ago. That was her reason. So, you know, I would have said something to that, but she had to get up and present her bill. Yes, that would probably be it. Okay, another interesting bill that passed out of the Senate committee was SB 126, and it's called Airborne Chemical Amendment. Anybody want to guess what that's about? Airborne chemtrails. So that did pass out of the Senate committee, so now it's going to the House, and I can't see if it says when it's going to be there or not, but hopefully it will be out soon. And because I believe it will pass the House. So that one is SB 126.
Can you give us 2 sentences about why chemtrails are bad? Some people think that's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, well, how many of you believe in it?
No, just tell us.
Well, I just want to ask.
If we believe it,
Okay,
educate us.
okay, I'll ask you after I tell you. So if you happen to look up in the sky on a day that should be completely blue skies and notice that there's this film across the skies that kind of looks like lines like this, that's a chemtrail.
They were spraying this morning.
Were they?
Really?
Were they?
Yes,
Ah.
they were.
Dang. So we have weather modification going on, and we have chemtrails going on. Those are 2 separate things. And so what they do is they get up, they go up really high. No one, it's really hard to monitor. It's really hard to catch these people, whoever's doing it, why they're doing it, where they're getting their stuff from. But it's sodium chloride, or I'm not even going to say the chemicals right, and some kind of aluminum. Really small particulates, so small that you can just breathe them right in. And there's literally not a place on the earth where they don't find these particulates, including in the Arctic.
They're trying to make us all into robots.
So there's lots of reasons why they say they're doing it, and there's actually some really amazing documentaries on it. And so if you want more information, talk to one of the believers. I mean, it's really, you should absolutely know about it. And some of the senators were like, what? You know, they didn't believe it, but there were enough people there to testify on it that it made them go, okay, this is really strange,
So
Peter.
you're saying chemtrails are different than the contrail that a commercial airliner leaves behind with water vapor.
Yes.
It's different.
Yeah, decimate, yeah.
Right.
Chemtrails leave a streak. across
Sue?
the sky. And you can see
The contrails do.
no, not the contrails.
Okay,
The
when-
chemtrails leave a streak across the sky.
Okay.
And they,
Well, commercial
They
jets do
dissipate.
too. On a certain day, the water vapor they leave will stretch a long distance. It sits there like a cloud once they pass.
This is totally different.
Okay, just want to make sure we
Yeah,
understand.
If you
It's
go
different.
out, there's a guy who's been doing this for 20-some odd years. There's a documentary called The Dimming, and if you look up geoengineering.com, there is a plethora of information that he has researched. This isn't a conspiracy. It's not a bunch of people wearing tinfoil on their heads. This is serious.
Yeah.
it's not a theory, it's
Yeah.
it's an actual.
Yeah,
conspiracy.
we're being, that bill number again is S?
What is the bill? I mean, what,
Oh, so, okay, that's a really good question. So basically, the bill is to just say, Utah doesn't want it. Get out of here, we don't want you. That's it. It's not allowed in our airspace, but, you know, there's no way to enforce that. Because if they're spraying in Wyoming, you know, and the earth, it will soon be over Utah, you know. So, but there are 11 states that have passed these kind of bills. And so this is bringing attention, and so we definitely want to pass the bill. I will tell you that there is a penalty associated with the bill, and it's a third-degree misdemeanor, which a few of the senators were like, that sounds a little bit harsh. I'm like, what? You like being poisoned? You don't think there's anything wrong with that? Anyway, but you know, that's a good thing. Now, any more questions on that one? Geoengineering.com. The dimming. If you don't know about it, look it up.
So does anybody know who's doing this? Because Hill Air Force Base absolutely denies that
Yeah.
they're doing any chemtrails.
Well, isn't it up from, all from Park?
Pardon?
Don't these kind of come down from Park?
I don't know.
So if the government would like to,
H-A-E-R-P.
Yeah.
Gotta do research, gotta do your own research.
Well,
You know,
now, if you want to educate us, you got to tell us what HARP means. Because we don't know.
well, you have to look it up because it's
Okay.
words, it's something.
Yeah.
I don't
Sounds
know.
like angels in the sky playing
No,
harps.
that would be, but, I've been, my first time in my whole life that I've ever gone down and sat in on these things, it's really interesting. And you're right, I think it's horrible that they do 700 or more bills in 40 days. And I was really disappointed the first day I went because the sponsor of the bill gave it. And then the person said, any comment?
Yeah.
Crickets.
Yeah.
Nobody acted like they even knew the bill. And so I think it's really important we do, you know, you go on le.utah.gov and then you can find the bills and get one you like and then do the research and then give your input. Because I've given input, you know, email, voicemail, and I've got response back from some of the, you know, people I talked to. So it's really quite interesting, but it's also quite scary.
You and your daughter did virtual public
did you see?
comments. Oh, yeah, I saw you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched the meeting virtually and, yeah, her and her daughter came
Well,
on.
my
and
daughter's much
they
more
were part of the
articulate.
public
One of her
comments.
friends said, we saw you on TV last night, so I think whatever she said got the guy. But there's a really bill that's really misleading in, I don't have the number right now, but I give you. But it's the one about the first new home and that guy you mentioned, Todd. He's sponsoring it, and it's just so misleading and, but it's probably gonna go through because you know, like they say, realtors. But that
So,
one, yeah.
so a couple of other bills that are interesting. One is a vaccine amendment bill. That's by Trevor Lee. This is actually a really good bill. It passed out of the House today. And, and what this does is, what they are doing is, you know, if they can't vaccinate us in our arm, they're going to vaccinate us through the food. And they're putting these chemicals into our meat and other ways so that we can eat it as well. So Trevor Lee wrote this bill that says, if you put it into our food, you have to label it as a drug, and you have to sell it in the pharmacy part of the grocery store. So it's sold through the House. He says it's going to pass. Last year, he did a bill similar, and it fell on its face. So this one is a little bit different, but it's going to pass. He also just passed, I think it passed the House, no, it would have passed the Senate today. It was a flag display amendment, which is going to make it illegal for the LGBTQ or any political flag to fly in public schools. So that'll be good. If any of you walk down a public school, you know, go in the classes, it's disgusting. Don, I hope you're ready to talk. I'm just going to tell. Okay. So are you going to talk? Who's going to talk about 300?
I got it.
Okay. So I'm just going to end with this so you can rest at ease, because yesterday that passed out of the Senate was a bill by Dan McKay, who is the author of SB 54 and our new flag, passed out of the Senate that we now no longer are going to spell Utah, U-T-A-H-A-N. We're going to spell it U-T-A-H-N. And then the other bill, I don't have numbers for either of these bills. And I don't know who's the sponsor of this one, but we no longer are going to call the black little thing that ate the crops that the seagulls came and ate them up and went and threw them up over here. We're not going to call those crickets anymore. We're not going to call them Mormon crickets anymore, because we don't want to offend the church. We're now going to call them by their scientific name. So there you go. I can't remember.
The preferred name is Cricket of the Church of Utah.
Okay, done.
If we were going to use correct analogy, we should call them the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint Cricket. Can I say that here at this church? So nevertheless, so HB 300, this bill would, because right now, Utah is like the only technically red state. Once again, if you want to consider Utah a red state, we could argue that, but that has full mail-in voting. Okay. HB 300 would we'd still get the ballots in the mail, but in order to cast your ballot, you'd have to take it to a polling place, show your ID, and then cast your ballot. A lot of people like this because technically you should only be able to vote once. Not that anybody would ever vote more than one time, we've been told. And you would be able to, and some people feel you still get your ballot in the mail, you could go fill it out and vote educated. But so that bill is, and also one thing I want to mention on HB 300, our current voting system really hurts our young adults. Because right now when you go register to vote, you register technically, I think, when you get your driver's license. So you sign on the little pad, with the little pen. And if you're like me, that looked different than when I sign a paper. So what they're doing, finding that when they get these ballots, the signatures aren't matching. So then they have to go up, they'll cure the ballots, make phone calls, and a lot of people don't get their ballots counted. I was told, and I haven't verified this, that 5,000 people didn't have their vote counted in Davis County and people are nodding, in this last election cycle. So this would take care of that. I think it's a good bill. From my understanding, the Speaker of the House is behind it, although one thing it's looking like it's getting pushed back. It passed out of committee 9-4, but it was circled, which kind of means it's kind of held at the moment, back a couple of days ago. So I think we really need to reach out to our legislators and make them aware that we like this thing. Somehow in Utah, the rest of the country and the Republicans seem to believe that, hey, we need to make our elections more secure. We in Utah seem to believe that, you know, because once again, we have that all is well in Zion approach. And no one would ever cheat. What's that? We are the gold standard. That's why one year I received 2 or 3 ballots for each member of my family in my house. So, but yes, I am told that. Speaking of elections, one bill, and this is actually would have been good if Aaron was here tonight. HB 69, because there's a lot of controversy about, because Aaron, I believe, had researched how some of these, had researched how some people in Utah County had voted. And they'd seen that some elected officials down in Utah County had mailed their ballots back, but didn't put a stamp on it because he was trying to be fiscally responsible, and they weren't sending people postage paid ballots. Davis County, we do that because we're spending our money, right? But they did that, and there were some people who were pretty well off, weren't putting postage on their ballots. And he saw that and testified to it. They freaked out. So now they want to literally make it so that if you did that, you could be subject to 180 days in jail. The scary part here is it passed the House 72 to nothing. These are the bills I love because I do grassroots, and I love when we can find a bill that everybody votes one way, and we can, you know, ding everyone, and that way get every legislator mad at me somehow. But nevertheless, it's now at the Senate, and I'm not sure what it is right now, but it was at the Senate committee, and it passed unanimously out of the Senate committee. So it's real danger this is going to pass. And to me, this is a real problem with our transparency. Another bill that we should be interested in is SB 173. Now, I'm not sure if this has really any chance of passing because it's sponsored by a Democrat. At least no Republican put their name on this. But basically gives us the universal free school lunch program. The free school lunch program would cost the citizens of the state of Utah $160 million. So I'm not sure if that's, we may have a different definition of what free is. So it's SB 173. It's Escamilla, Senator Escamilla. He's everyone, yeah. So you could all have lunch. Maybe they could put some medication in it. So nevertheless, so those are 3 bills that we're looking at. And if I just add something to what Tina said, just really quick, if you're a county delegate, make sure you plan to be at the county convention April 12th. I may be the one running for county chair. Maybe there's another person whose initials DG that's really good. But I want to make sure people are aware because sometimes people don't realize they're a county delegate. And I was talking to my sister-in-law Sunday. I said, hey, you're going to be at a convention? And she's going, oh, we have another convention we have to go to? I thought we were done. So make sure you let your people know because it is vital we get our people out, not just for my election, but it's for the State Central Committee. If we're going to, we got some great ideas we've been discussing about SB 54 and overturning it. But in order to get SB 54 overturned, we need to have the right chair, state party chair, and the right central committee. So it's really important we get good people elected. So that, Jen, do you want this or?
I'm glad you brought up HB 69 because it was somebody's feelings were hurt, and it was the brother-in-law of our governor, and he used the power of our legislature to punish one gentleman because he posted his ballot, like the outside, not his ballot, but the envelope on social media. And so that so concerning. Boo. Anyway, okay. So there's a few that I want to talk about. There is a bill sponsored by Kristen Chevrier that will take garbage food out of our schools. So watch for that one. If you could know how to search a bill by her name, I can't remember the number.
Tell us what garbage food is.
It's from Kristen Chevrier, so I'm sure she'll make sure that there's nothing in it. She runs an online Facebook group called Latter-day Saints for Health Freedom. Oh, Health Freedom Utah. Oh, okay. Maybe. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway. So it would be like fresh vegetables, I think. I'm pretty sure anyway, so we'll come HB 402, and I think that one passed a committee. So encourage your legislators to keep pushing on that one. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Okay. Okay. HB 233 is being run by, she's a new legislator for Tooele. Sorry, I have it in my pictures.
Really quickly, give you what the food is that they.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. So the following, if the following foods would be banned from food bought by the public, if it contains brominated vegetable oil, potassium bromate, propylabrin or whatever, titanium dioxide, blue dye 1, blue dye 2, green dye 3, red dye 3, red dye 40, yellow dye 5, and yellow dye 6.
That's from all food or just school
That's
lunch?
from school lunch. It's basically, if it's basically out of the school lunches. But it enacts provisions to prohibit certain food additives from being served in a public school.
Okay. Thank you. HB 233, School Curriculum Amendments. This is run by Representative Nicolene Peck and the Senator Scott Sandel. It prohibits people who perform abortions from giving curriculum to our kids. So that's a good one. It's 233, and it passed the House, a substitute passed the House Education Committee today. So that's a good one. There's another one called HB 322. Hold on a second. 322. These numbers are giving me dyslexia. But it is in response to Eric. So last year, Tina and some other members of the State Central Committee passed a resolution in Davis County to get Eric out of the county. So what's concerning about Eric, it is the Electronic Registration Information Center. So it is Eric is supposed to be a nonprofit NGO, but our state code states we are not supposed to give voter data to third parties. Well, Eric is a third party. So there's some other issues that are wrong with it. It doesn't allow for audits because it's proprietary, and so they don't share it with people, and so it can't be audited, which does not lend to transparency. So this one, I believe, has passed House, but there's a lot of our county clerks that are against the bill, and so they're going to be targeting senators to not pass this bill. But this one is, if we want election integrity, we've got to start with these things. Also, it is, yeah.
It hasn't passed the House yet.
What?
It's on the 3rd. It just got circled, at least what I'm showing.
Oh, someone gave me bad info then, because I was told it passed and then Okay.
Carrie Ann Elizabeth's the sponsor.
Yes, Carrie Ann.
Yeah, that was one we were concerned about. And so I think it's the Lisenby, I think she's the sponsor.
Yes.
So she responded to me and she said, this bill supposedly is going to get rid of Eric, but the other side sees, well, then we're going to join MOUs, which like 5 other states got rid of Eric and they joined MOUs. So I looked up that and it was kind of like, well, it'd be just transferring all of our data to another platform to be out there, and it would cost money.
So it's no better than Eric.
Yeah, we're just kind of spending $1 million to have a different title. So I don't think the end result would be what we were thinking it would be. That's
Right. Well, I know that there's a few people that have been working on getting Eric out because it was started with a silent donor. First of all, we should know who those donors are. Second of all, if you've been watching the signature gathering stuff, any of that from Michael Clara information, which if you want to hop on YouTube, he has like 11 or 12 videos that are really good to help educate with the whole process of that. So I was in a meeting with OLAG last year, the Office of the Legislative Attorney General, thank you, Auditors General, and we went around the room. There were probably 25 of us in there. Dawn was in there too, and we discussed all the issues that we had found. So 40% of Spencer Cox's signatures were from people whose voter registration was either withheld or private. So the only way they could have got to the exact percentage or gotten to that percentage is if they had the voter rolls, if the people collecting signatures had the voter rolls, because in general, 40% of our voters are private or withheld. So 40% of the people who signed the packet for the 28,000 signatures for Cox could not be verified by anyone outside of our clerks. And all of that data went to one clerk, Brian McKenzie, Davis County Clerk. So there were a few other things that were weird in that. For instance, there were a bunch of signatures that were right after another, one right after another, and they were all teachers. So if they signed that at a school or somewhere where where you're supposed to keep your opinion to yourself, having that kind of stuff at a school is not appropriate. There were also, I'm trying to think of all the other things that were wrong with them. There were people the signature gatherers would go to people's doors and say, well, you're a registered Republican, so you have to sign. There were people who had signed, so the enforcement wasn't consistent for all of the candidates. Some candidates would have to provide state ID to show that they were over 18, but for other signature gatherers, there was nothing like that. Like I know for Hatch, they told him, oh no, you have to get driver's licenses from every signature gatherer that was paid to gather signatures, and they were from out of state. He couldn't catch up with them, and so that's why his rejection rate was so much larger, and his being submitted later as well, because I don't think the general population knows that if you sign one of those, you can't sign for a competing candidate. And we do need to do some more education on why people collect signatures, how that path was born, and how that path needs to die. I'm trying to think if there was any other. Oh yeah, there were several packets that were blatantly signed by the same person over and over and over, and those packets probably should have gone to the Attorney General, but they were sent back to the Lieutenant Governor's office, and she was one of the candidates. So instead of sending it to the AG's office, the Davis County clerk sent it back to the lieutenant governor.
Any legislation that's trying to remove the lieutenant governor for being part of the election process? Because to me, that's a big legislation.
Sure. So the state central committee passed a resolution that the legislature ignored. They passed a resolution for a secretary of state. However, there's legislation, I'm not sure the bill number, that wants it to be appointed. So the governor gets to appoint 2 people, the Speaker of the House gets to appoint somebody, the President of the Senate, and then, I don't know, someone else. So yeah, so you have 5 people. You only have to control 5 people to appoint whoever is over elections.
To be able to create a Secretary of State, it's a constitutional
amendment.
and so you have to put it on the ballot.
And would that resolution result in putting it on the ballot?
No, it's a recommendation, but go ahead.
Because I know you do use a resolution to get on the ballot for an amendment. I just don't know if that one happens to fit that requirement.
So what Mike Schultz is telling us is that it's some process that takes like 2 years before you can get it on the ballot. And so they were hoping to have something more immediate, and that's all I have to really add to it. Yeah, so anyway.
Sorry, it is. That's not true.
So anyway, okay, Peter?
Okay, first I want to talk about our newsletter, make sure everybody is aware that there is such a thing. If you have not been receiving an email from us each month with the Davis Correspondence newsletter, be sure to send me an email at Davis Correspondence, that's the name of the email, at gmail.com. And then I'll send your name to Dawn to add your name to the mailing list, and then you'll get our email. We just produce it once a month. The purpose of that newsletter is to focus on issues related to things that affect Davis County. We're not looking at national issues. We love Trump, but he doesn't have a real direct impact on Davis County very much. But we do care about our Davis County commissioners. We do care about our school board, our Davis School Board. We care about city governments and the city councils and what they're doing. If there's a special district like the South Davis Recreation District or the Solid Waste Disposal District, those are all local matters. And what we're really hoping is that we'll get a bunch of inspired citizens who say, I'm going to spend 3 to 5 hours every month. I'm going to go to 2 meetings and write a quick little report of what I heard. And I'm going to send it to the Davis Correspondence, and it'll get out to a lot of people. That way, a lot of our citizens can become more educated about what is going on in our local politics. Nobody in the news is going to cover that. Nobody. Nowhere. And as a result, we're not involved in that part of our government. If we'd like to be involved, if we want to have liberty, we have to be vigilant. And as I write in an article in this month's newsletter that will come out, I think this next Saturday, we'll send it out. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. If nobody's telling us what's happening, then you either got to go to those meetings yourself, and not everybody can do that, or you got to have somebody willing to sacrifice a few hours, go to those meetings or listen to them online, and write a little report that people can find out about it. So I would beg you, I have invited 8 or 10 people to write a monthly article about some aspect of Davis County government, but that's not enough. If you feel like you'd like to write a little article, send it to me. I don't care if you're talking about the fire district or the police or a city council or a school board, just send it to me. The thing is, I don't want more than about 500 words. Some of us like to go on, and I shouldn't do that. So I've put a limit between 200 and 500 words. It doesn't have to be long, just something to let people know that it's happening. To be honest, people reading that newsletter don't want to read very much. They just want to read something brief that's factual. We're not trying to grind an axe. We're not trying to run a campaign here. We just want to inform people of what's really happening. If it's good, that's fine. Now, you'll notice that every city probably publishes a newsletter. And you might say, well, there it is, we get informed. Yeah, because they tell you about the Little League Baseball sign up, and they tell you what you have to do to qualify for the pool in the city. And they might tell you when you can and can't park your car on the street. But is that really everything the government is doing? I would guess that their spending and taxes might be a little more important than some of those issues, and they don't talk about that very much. Okay, well, a question, Yi, yes?
We should all know that Citizens Portal that's recently been set up is reporting and publishing every government meeting that's going on right now.
How do they get that information?
You gotta sign up with Citizens Portal.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, but I mean, where do they get it from?
Scrape it from anything that's publicly available on the internet.
Okay, so if there's minutes of a meeting, they might sort out what is offensive?
If it's broadcast, they'll read those actual feeds and transcribe it, and the AI will do summaries.
Now, that's way too voluminous for me to absorb, so how does that help me?
It'll reduce that into something that's a soundbite of what's gone on.
Okay.
People can watch those instead of going to the meeting and write up about it.
Okay. Has anybody compared those artificial intelligence summaries with actual attendance at a meeting? Is it representative, I wonder? I don't know. I don't really trust AI very much yet.
It depends on who's programming behind it, because if everyone's got a bias, so you're hoping that the AI, especially in Citizen Portal, they're claiming they're building it with no bias. They want it to be as honest as possible. That's what they're claiming, and I think that is their intention. But there's always a bias behind AI, so you always have to be aware of that.
Okay. Well, let's keep an eye on that. I'd like to find out. Because if AI does a better job than my newsletter, I can save myself a lot of time.
I don't think we're saying to replace the newsletter. I like access information.
And to help your newsletter. In other words, if we watch some of those meetings, we get some of the.
Oh, good.
Then we can feed
Yeah, if you see something meaningful in the Citizen Portal, send me a shot and we'll put that in our newsletter. Okay, good.
Or you read the information, you compile it into a thing and then send it to you.
Yeah, good. All right, well, good. I've got a couple of bills that I would like to talk about. To be honest, these are grassroots bills anyway that Don didn't talk about tonight, so I just thought I'd mention them briefly. HB 27, we probably already talked about it here, voting precinct amendments. I was troubled to find out that this bill plans, if it passes, it would plan to reduce the maximum number of voters in a precinct. Right now, the maximum number that you can have in a precinct is 1,250. But if this bill were to pass, the maximum number would be 3,000. Now, you've been to caucus meetings. Yes, please.
There's been a substitute on that. They've taken out the 3,000, but if you go down to the bottom of the thing, they've also taken out the limitation for the 1,250.
So there is no limitation at all now.
Well, if there, so, sorry.
It is currently in the newest substitute, it's unlimited.
Well, the point, in case you're as dense as I was, this didn't strike me as a real problem at first. But now that I think about it, if you've ever been to a caucus meeting, and I'll bet you all have, sometimes they're a little crowded. And if they get crowded, it's kind of hard to have a say. It takes longer to count the votes. It takes longer for each of the candidates to have a little speech. Yes? Oh, this is the fine print.
So this is the part of 20A-5-303.5. So at the bottom of it, a county clerk may not adjust the boundaries of a voting precinct except as provided in subsection 1. So what they did is that's the new wording. The old wording was the county clerk may not adjust the boundaries of a voting precinct if the number of active voters in the resulting voting precinct is more than the limit of the active voters in a voting precinct under the subsection that has the 1250. So they can change it, and it doesn't matter what the 1250 is. Subsection 1, where's subsection 1?
There are several subsections here.
Notwithstanding, which means it doesn't matter what it says, notwithstanding section 20A-5-303, which includes the 1250 limit, the county clerk may adjust the boundaries of a voting precinct in order to. So there's the reasons that they can. But then down at the bottom, there's no limit in section 3.
So if you were trying to kill the caucus, you would make those precincts so big that the meetings are so unmanageable and people can have so little input that it doesn't work. And then you don't have to have a caucus system anymore. The way to make it work is to keep it small enough that citizens can have an input. And so we say, Grassroots says that bill is a no-go. That ought to fail because we don't want them to make them that big. Let's see if we know the sponsor of that. Dunnigan, Representative Dunnigan, a Republican from, is he Salt Lake City, I think. He's a longtime experienced guy. He's one of the insiders. So, yeah. Now, we do have HB 33. I think we talked about that in our last meeting. Child welfare reporting amendments, and Grassroots supports a yes vote on that because it's going to put some teeth into people who make false reports on child welfare.
That one just passed the Senate committee today.
Good.
So far, they haven't made any substantive changes to it, so it's continuing to just make it so DCFS agents can file a police report if someone knowingly files a false claim.
Yeah, they would be required to file a report if they knowingly file a false claim. Okay. Any other bills that we want to talk about? I think that's all I have for you. Tina, if you've got something else.
The only other thing that I can think of is that I spoke with Senator John Johnson today after the Senate, the Natural Resources Committee hearing, and he has an election bill that makes it so if you're up to date with all the signature stuff, about 40% of the signatures were gathered were either private or withheld, which meant that nobody could look at those names. Now, kind of think about that number for a minute. Why would there be 40% of the names withheld? And for one reason, when you go to get your driver's license, you can check right on there, you want to keep yours private, which they should remove that. That sounds good, but it's also bad. And let's see, I looked up the number. Okay, SB 218. So he made it so those signatures, if someone signed a signature packet, their names are now public, to at least to the signature companies, because, I mean, that's just obvious. Well, the signature companies, they're certainly getting that information. Right, but right now the only ones that we're getting was the signature company and the candidate, the one candidate. So he was making it public to everybody, and they killed that bill. So he says he's going to subset it into another bill so that it will still go through, but that hasn't happened yet. One other bill that we can watch for, I texted Ryan Wilcox. Okay, good. So I just found out Ryan Wilcox force HB 474. Let me see what he's named it, if I can. These don't have numbers. Okay, it's like the REINS Act that Mike Lee is working at the federal level. This one, Ryan Wilcox is working at the state level, which has to, the way that it's kind of reigning in government is that any expenditure over, I believe it was $1 million, that has to be voted on again. Like when that thing runs, when that term, whatever, runs out that it's been allocated, it cannot be extended without being voted on again by the legislature. So that's kind of reining in all of this bureaucracy that's just out of control. Yes, that's what it is. Yeah, yep. Regulatory. I was looking on him and I was having a hard time seeing it. But yes, that's exactly what it is. HB 454. So 74. So that is a really, really important bill. And we're hoping to get that through. So that's one that you can put on your tracker. Okay.
Really quickly, I just want to talk about HB 158. This was state sovereignty amendments. This is by Lisa Shepard. It's now in the Senate with Senator Winterton. This one is specifically declaring that we are a sovereign state, that we will not be governed by organizations like the WHO or the World Economic Forum or different entities that really have no say in the state of Utah. We're saying you don't have a say. She has it in such a way that it prohibits the governor from declaring a state of emergency exclusively in response to an international organization's recommendation. So still, the governor can declare a state of emergency, but he needs to be able to show that it's because of his own research and advice from the people within the state. They can take the recommendation from those international organizations, but they cannot make the decision exclusively based on those recommendations. So it might not have stopped what happened with COVID, but it would have required our governor to not just say, well, the WHO is requesting this, so we're going to do it. Instead, he would have had to say, well, this is what's being recommended. Here's what our people say. It passed through the House with 59-13. So it was the Democrats voted against it and all the Republicans voted for it. It's going to the Senate. There are 2 senators, I cannot remember which 2, that are Republicans who are not a big fan of this bill. I think one of them is Thatcher, but don't quote me on it. So make sure to put some encouragement towards the senators that we want this bill passed because we should have independence and sovereignty within our state. The other one that I wanted to just quickly talk about, because it hasn't been brought up, but I think it's important. That's Lisa's bill, yeah. It's HB 158, if you wanted it. I do not recall if he testified on that one in committee, but it's. I could go back and go back and listen to the committee hearing on that one. The other one that I wanted to just quickly mention was HB 77. This one is Trevor Lee's flag display amendments. It just was barely heard in committee today, and it was amended. But it passed out favorably. And what this one does is it requires that government buildings, it's kind of what Trump did at the national level, government buildings can only fly the appropriate flags with very few exceptions. So the American flag and the Utah flag will be flying on government buildings and very, very few exceptions for something other than those to be displayed. So no Black Lives Matter or pride flags or anything of that nature. We're done making political statements. We're going to be unified as Utahns. So keep an eye on that one as well. HB 77, like I said, it just passed through committee today. So we're hoping that it gets through the process. There are some people also in the Senate who don't want it to be heard. So we just need to continue to be encouraging of our senators to do the right thing. I believe it's Senator Thatcher's one of them, but I'm not positive who the other one is, but it is another Republican, and I just don't have the list in front of me to be like, that's who it is.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm going to take a shift for a second. So if you are a county delegate, the Davis County Organizing Convention is April 12th. However, if you are a state delegate, Then the organizing convention for the state, this is where the GOP for Utah is elected. This would be the chair, the vice chair, treasurer, secretary, and then yeah, there's some bylaw stuff coming up. And that one is May 17th. The location of that, I am not sure of yet, but it will most likely be closer to Salt Lake. But if you want to put that on your calendars, if you're a state delegate, if you're not a county or a state delegate, I would contact your precinct chair so that is it at UVU? Okay. But I would just stay in contact with your precinct chair in case your state delegate or your county delegate cannot go. So a little... What's that? May 17th is the state organizing convention at UVU. I think you're right. Okay. I just wanted to... There's some things that are happening in our county that I wanted to review. I spoke at the county commission meeting last week, and I only got 3 minutes. But a little bit of history. In 2005, Utah decided the way to get people out of homelessness was housing first. So this would be you stay 30 days at the homeless shelter, and you qualify for Section 8 housing. The problem with this is it incentivized people to kind of, if they were struggling, to just give up and go to the shelter for 30 days, and then they would qualify for Section 8 housing. So Section 8 housing takes 30% of your income, and that is your rent, and the rest of it is subsidized by taxpayers. However, if you don't work, it's $50 a month. So if I'm not working, there is no incentive for me to go to work because my rent would go up. That started in 2005 in Utah, and then there was, what's that guy's? There was a comedian that on his late night TV show, he's like, hey, Utah is solving homelessness by, get this, giving people homes. So it drew, I was working with the population experiencing homelessness during this time, and there were people coming from all across the United States because they heard that our unemployment was low, and they heard we were handing out apartments. So they would show up and then find out, oh, wait, I have to, like, there's some work involved with getting with this, and our shelters aren't necessarily safe. The Midvale Family Shelter, I worked with families there too. Their bottom floor has like the workers that sign people up for food stamps and Medicaid and all the things that they're eligible for the second that they get there. But then the second floor is a floor of bunk beds. And so there is no separation between you and the person next to you. I know that there were several people that had boyfriends that were on the offender registry, but the shelter was a low barrier one, and so they were not doing background checks. And I know a gentleman who had his daughter who was nonverbal assaulted in the middle of the night because someone crawled out of their bed and assaulted, and it happens all the time at that Midvale Family Shelter. The one in Ogden, the Lantern House, kind of is set up as a hostel, so they might have a bunch of bunk beds in a room, and then they have to have a key to get in there. But the point is that we have a population of people that are on the offender registry, and they don't get Section 8 housing. If they get caught living with someone that's on Section 8 housing, that person can lose their housing, but they're not finding other places to rent. And there are a few NGOs in Salt Lake that are addressing this issue, but when I was on that block where the road home was, 75 to 80% of the crime that was happening in the entire state of Utah was happening on that block because of the people that can't find housing. And so to take your family to spend 30 days in a place like that was unthinkable to me, but they also weren't helping people find jobs. I was working with the deputy chief of police, finding employers that would give second chances second chance employment. And I had 6 guys working. Well, I was checking in with 6 guys that if you weren't in line at the road home at 10:30, then you had to get you didn't get in line. You didn't get a bed. When you came back, there might be a yoga mat on the kitchen floor available to you. So I said, look, these guys are working really hard. They're working 12-hour days. Will you save a bed if I check in every morning and tell you how many of these guys hopped on that shuttle every morning? And they told me no. I said, how does anybody ever get out of homelessness then? And she shrugged her shoulders and said, I don't know, they just do. So there's a lot of people that make money off of providing services that don't want to go out of business. So I know that they spent $67 million doing Operation Rio Grande, which was if you were caught on the street and you were high or you had drugs, then you were given an opportunity to go to drug court, or some of the funding went to find beds at rehabilitation facilities. And I think they had 3 people that were successful in rehab 2 years later, but that was a lot of money to spend. But because of the crime that was happening on that block, they split that area up into 4 other facilities that had, okay, we're going to take the men away from the women. We're going to take the women with kids in a separate facility, and they created resource centers. Some of these resource centers are now in the districts of the ballpark district, what's it called? Sports district. So they're in areas that will cause a problem for the Olympics and things like that. And so they have a task force that can have meetings that do not have to be publicly disclosed. And I think that this is wrong, because our public is the people who help, right? We're compassionate, but we don't want to be stupid. So they should be asking more people from the public, and they shouldn't be hiding this information. So they're looking for a place to put 1,200 beds. There's lots of rumors going around, and I won't repeat those. However, there's people who are chasing that because it's $30 million. I know that Davis County at one point has chased that funding because they've overspent in other areas, and one of those areas was they spent COVID money on a new shelter, on a new animal shelter that was twice as big as the old shelter, but now they needed to fill it with employees. So they've raised taxes of $1.5 million to fund more employees at this brand new facility. So they've spent all of their COVID funding and then some, because they were raising taxes. So I would just, these kinds of things are discussed, or you can discuss at open or at public comment. The county meetings are Tuesdays at 10 a.m. And we have some commissioners that aren't quite on board with keeping the crime that comes along with this population. And I'm not saying the population is bad, but I know, or is all bad, but I know that they've had problems. I had a client that her mom taught her how to do meth at 9 years old. And she was in her 20s and living in a Bronco in the middle of winter, and there was no back window to that Bronco. And she had kids. So 4 of them were sleeping in a Bronco. And she had no idea how to do anything other than what her mother taught her. She had a few things that she wanted to do, but not a whole lot of support. So it's not like every single one of them is going to bring crime. But at that time, there were drug cartels as well, that because of where the road home was located, that it was a quick way to stop off a supply, pick up cash, and then head back either east or west on I-80 or continue south. These 2 cartels would kidnap teenage boys from their countries, Nicaragua, Honduras, and Guatemala, and bring them here. And they would tell them, if you do not bring a certain amount of money back at the end of the day, then we will kill your family. So this was reported by the deputy chief of police. So there's things that I don't think that our commissioners understand on what they will bring to Davis County if it comes that way. So I know that there's been some pushback in Kaysville for the warming center, and that went viral, and a whole bunch of people called us non-Christians and whatever. But waiting for someone to freeze on the street to decide to act to help these people is not compassionate. Waiting at the bottom of a cliff with the ambulance is not compassionate. Talking to them before they jump off the cliff and getting them help and resources before they jump off the cliff is what needs to be addressed. So I'll probably make another presentation this next Tuesday, and I hope you all come.
All right. I think we'll call tonight, everybody. Thank you for coming, and very sorry that Aaron was not able to be here, but we do have Phil Lyman 2 weeks from today. We'll also have Michael Clara, so please come back and bring others with you. Richard? I do not even understand that. No. Sure.
So Phil Lyman put together another petition on the 4th of this month. It was received at the Supreme Court on the 7th, and they scheduled it for conference on the 12th, and it's scheduled for the 28th. That's pretty quick for the Supreme Court. Can you say what you said? All right, so I got a notice that said Phil Lyman petitioned again for a rehearing on the 4th of this month. It was received at the Supreme Court on the 7th of this month, and they put it on the docket for conference on the 12th, and it's scheduled for the 28th. So the Supreme Court is hearing that case again in conference. That's basically where they decide whether or not they'll take it up and hear it fully. So it's not dead.
The reason why that's happening is because typically cases are only heard by like 3 justices. So when they take it to conference, it's because someone is saying that all the justices should hear it. So this will provide all 9 justices to be able to weigh in on it. So pray that there are others besides the 3 that initially heard it who will make it into decision.
There's something we can pray for. Right here?
SB 203 and 204 for just a second.
What's that one?
That's a couple of lengthy bills. And for the most part, it's good. But let me just share with you what Austin Hepworth, how many of you know Austin Hepworth? No. An incredible lawyer. Yeah. Incredible. An incredible constitutionalist. Yeah. So Austin said this, and Jill Dredge sent this to us, so we were aware of it today. Austin said this: the executive and legislative branches are coming for our court systems. They feel the courts get in the way too much. And I agree with that. Our courts in Utah are quite corrupt. But they create too many issues, so they are working to limit the power of the courts or to completely ignore the courts. In SB 203 and 204 that are currently proposed in Utah, these bills limit those who can challenge a law's constitutionality through the courts and allow the government to still enforce an unconstitutional law while it's still in appeal. Whether we agree with everything the courts do or not, the courts have often been the last line of defense against a myriad of unconstitutional laws over the centuries. If history shows us anything, it is that the legislative and executive branches have not been the best about protecting our Constitution. And that's absolutely true about our executive branch right now, without question. About protecting the Constitution, and it's quite disheartening to see the courts coming under attack so much because it limits us and our ability to fight unconstitutional laws. So we've got to take a look at either amending SB 203 or 204 or stop it, because it could limit us in major ways and take away our ability to limit unconstitutional laws. Okay? Trevor's supporting it, but I don't think he's, and I sent this to him from Austin. I know Austin really well. I sent this to Trevor today, hoping he would begin to take a look at what the problem is with SB 203 and 204. Austin Hepworth ran for Attorney General, and he should be the Attorney General, not Derek Brown.
And you can sign that she's sending. What does she call it? If anybody wants to know after, I'll show you when we're done.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We'll see you in 2 weeks.